It's June 27th, 2022. This is Roqe. Hi there, welcome to episode 188 of Roqe. I'm Jian Ghomeshi, hope you're keeping well. Wherever you are tuning in from around the world, hello to you from Toronto, Canada. Salam Dostan Aziz, Joorabchi Shoma. Hello, fabulous Kian.
Hi, Jian.
Hello, Captain Reza.
Hello, sir.
And hello to Happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday to you.
Groovy Shaya is the birthday boy.
Hi, thank you.
He's got his hoodie on in case it rains in the studio.
Gandalf.
You are the coolest, I don't even know, should I say your age? The coolest 30-something.
30-something, yeah. 36. Yeah.
Aren't we all?
Are you 36?
Yes.
Oh,
yeah, actually.
Yeah.
right.
36 year young.
36 years. And the obligatory and kind of inane question, how do you feel? Do you feel any different today?
Not today, but like yesterday I felt a little bit different. I think I definitely feel that I'm in a new path of my life.
Okay.
Yeah.
The big turn at 36, that's, I don't know, 36 is, never heard of that before. But the fork in the road at the age 36.
No, but I think it's also coincided with him like settling down.
Oh, there's a lot of things going on.
That's
but as the resident philosopher king of our of the Roqe media empire, I mean, you're less a philosopher, I have to admit, without the Gandalf beard. The clean-shaven Shia, I just don't believe him as much as a philosopher. But as our resident philosopher king, how do you are you someone who feels a little I don't know, misty-eyed, is it difficult for you, a birthday, or is it something that you see as an opportunity?
So, as probably you may know, I have a twin sister, so it's her birthday today, and also my father, his birthday is...
Oh my God.
Yeah, so I'm sharing my birthday with two other people in my family, so honestly, it was like more like Christmas for me. You have to, happy birthday to, you have to, so, and I don't feel anything special about my birthday, because it's not for me. So.
Yes, it is. You're special to us, Shia. There's only one Shia for us.
We love you, Shia. Happy birthday, buddy.
And
we'll give you something later. How about that?
Oh, amazing.
Something
you
nice,
just gave
like
sounded ominous.
Yeah, I know.
We will give you something later.
By the way, you're fired. Yeah.
Is it your birthday?
Perfect timing. Your walking papers or your pink slip is in the other room. This is Conversations from, to, and about the Iranian diaspora. So today, Dr. Sina Joorabchi. Now, if you are a legitimate doctor, if you are somebody, however, who, more than a legitimate doctor, a very celebrated doctor, but if you're someone who is a fan of these doctors who are big on social media, this guy is right up there. He's, millions of views on TikTok and on Instagram, etc. But in this case, for being a doctor, for actually doing doctor kind of stuff. What has happened to my faculty? The doctor kind of stuff.
I feel like I'm watching Joey from Friends.
Yeah, he's doing the doctor kind of stuff. An otolaryngologist, Kian.
Ooh, try saying that, Reza.
Otolaryngologist. Unless it's otolaryngologist. I don't think it is. Specializing in disorders of the head and neck, ranging from hearing loss to cancer. So if you've watched Dr. Sina, he just goes by Dr. Sina, young, handsome guy.
Keanu.
Why are you looking at me?
I- I'm-
I have a handsome doctor.
whose name starts with an S.
I have my own. Thank you very much.
There you go.
Well, in case you wanted a collection of them. I understand Dr. Sina is very happily married with children, but you know, he's implicated. Dr. Sina, he actually takes you into the operating room in some cases. He explains he's very powerful when it comes to talking about hearing loss, which I'm kind of sensitive about as a former touring drummer who's lost some hearing. And so I mean, we'll get to all of that. He's in Florida. Joining us in a few moments, Dr. Sina Joorabchi, social media sensation / fabulous surgeon. Happy Pride. It was Pride weekend in a lot of our parts of the world. In Toronto, I know you were out and about, Reza.
Yeah.
I think you're just waking up from it. Your voice
He's still
sounds
dressed like it.
he's just recovering from the gummies, or something.
Yeah, I couldn't do a lot of gummies yesterday. Maybe some, but no, I'm joking.
You were shooting at Pride.
I was shooting at
but I hope
Pride,
you were having fun at Pride too.
I was having the time of my life.
How
Honest
was
to
it?
God, it was the best experience.
Yeah.
And I haven't. So last time I
Pride
went
is
to
the best experience.
Here's
I've
the
always
thing.
said that's where you should take kids to Pride.
Have you
because
been more than once?
Many
Times.
Yeah.
You see, I'd only been once, and that was like 16 years ago or something like
Wow.
that. Like I just come to Canada. I was interested to see what. It's
How
like.
do you miss it the other years? It's
I
like
didn't
it takes
go
over
after because then it was like such a. And I went late at night, and I think I went to the wrong part of the city. I don't know. I was new to Canada. I thought I was. There was no Google Maps. That's what I think. I ended up at like Jarvis and Bloor or something. Like it was like crack whores and stuff on the. So it was. It wasn't
not
right
what
in.
Toronto Pride is.
No, and it was like 1 a.m. It was the wrong part of the city.
Right.
So I was like, nah, it's not for me. I'm not interested in that. Until a very dear friend of mine who's an LGBT part of the LGBTQ community, and he's a trans, and wanted to do a documentary and asked me if I want to do it for him. And I said yes, but in September later. So, but I forgot that Pride is yesterday, and I needed some B-roll shots, insert shots of people dancing to put in the film. It
So
was just a
excited
rush
you were
thing.
about Pride that you haven't gone for 16 years and you forgot it was yesterday.
I wasn't looking forward to it. That's why I kind of forgotten about it. I was like, just go. It's like a thing. Whatever. We got to go shoot. And then I went and I fell in love, and I loved
It's a
every
celebration
second of
of-
it. My parents came.
Aw,
No joke. Yeah, they were downtown, out and about, and then I ran into them at Dundas
That's
Square.
cute.
They were like, "What are you doing here?" I'm like, "What are you guys doing here?" They were
You
drinking.
ran into your
I
parents
ran
at Pride.
into my parents.
That's a
at
first.
Pride. That only happens to Reza.
That's it. It's not the most common phrase said in the Persian community,
know.
which I love it though.
I know.
How did they
I
like
I went
it?
to Pride and I saw
ran
my
into
parents.
And we're all straight. That's what's interesting.
How did your parents like it?
They loved it. My dad, he couldn't get enough. He brought a bag of tokhme. He was like popping tokhme, clapping, dancing. Hooray!
Fabulous.
Yeah,
I
Fabulous.
it
miss
was
my dad now.
Fabulous.
My dad
Fantastic.
would love that too.
Did you partake in Pride, Shai?
Actually, I didn't know, but yeah, I mean, because I was traveling from East Town to West Town, and I
got
found
caught up in the euphoria.
Yeah, and so it was amazing.
I was in New York, and there was Pride in New York as well. So
Is it the same time as here?
it's the same
Day?
weekend,
Same
apparently.
weekend.
Yes,
Perfect.
Reza, deduction. I was in New York, and it happened there as well.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Sorry, I just woke up.
I know. It's been a long weekend for you. It was great. It was really, really fun. There was a lot of New York's. It was a very hot weekend, and so everybody was out in the streets. But I also went to 2 concerts in New York that were very different from each other.
Okay.
I went to Ali Azimi, our friend, on Saturday night.
Nice.
They just finished their New York or their North American tour this weekend. Their last show was last night in Washington D.C. But of course, Ali and Peyman Salimi, who we had here recently on stage, and Yahya, the great drummer, and
Which one was better, Toronto or New York?
honestly, I think.
Especially crowd.
Rumble.
I'm asking about the crowd.
Well, the crowd in New York was great. I mean, Toronto was a much bigger show because the community is much, much bigger here, right? So I fancied the Toronto show more because it was kind of epic. But New York was fabulous. It was a great show. But So that was lovely, and it was nice to see Ali, and they did a great job, and everybody should check out his new record if they haven't already. Some amazing songs that are just natural sing-alongs. You notice that when we went to the show in Toronto too?
Yeah, I know.
People just singing along to all these songs. He has a knack for that. And he may be making an appearance in our new series that we've been teasing, but we haven't announced yet. Yeah. But on Friday, the night before, I went to a very different kind of concert, which was this epic stadium tour of Def Leppard, Motley Crue, Poison, and Joan Jett. Now, I was guessing that you probably don't know any of these bands, do you? Do you, Reza?
I know Motley Crue.
You do know Motley Crue?
Yeah, I know Motley Crue.
Because of Pamela Anderson?
No, I don't know them. I've heard like their
You maybe heard a song or two.
I heard their songs on the radio, pops.
And Keon, you would know them because you grew up in the West. I mean, these are 80s and 90s bands, you know. But they kind of there's a fun nostalgia about going to see them, you know. And you would know some of the big. And I texted Shia from there, and I was surprised he didn't know the names, but then you ended up knowing some Def Leppard songs, right?
Exactly. It's punk rock, right?
No, it's not at all punk rock. It's very, very pop rock kind of. I mean, Motley Crue are campy kind of tattooed black, you know, and heavy rock. And Def Leppard and Motley Crue are American, and Def Leppard are British rockers, you know. But they were, like, when I was a kid and I was into punk rock and Bowie and stuff like that, I didn't like these bands because they were too pop, too, you know. But it's really fun to see them now, and I do love the songs, and it was a campy experience. But one of the things it was in Citi Field in New York, 50,000 people, not one fucking Persian.
No, of course not.
I don't think there was one Persian there. I mean, other than me and my friend. I you know, this falls into the category. This music, Def Leppard, Motley Crue, into that category of rock that, even though Iranians know Michael Jackson and some stuff that was happening in the 80s and 90s, this was the kind of music that never made it, never crossed over. And so even though these are huge bands, not a lot of Persians. I know there's some Persian fans of Def Leppard and Motley Crue, but looking around, extremely white. It was an extremely white audience.
Age demographic, what would you say?
Amazingly very diverse.
Yeah?
I would have expected it to be, you know, boomers or Gen Xers and stuff, but there's a lot of young people there. I think because Motley Crue, like Tommy Lee, like people just think they're kind of cool. So there was all these, like,
and
a new
generation. You hear them
generation
on the radio a lot. So.
Yeah, so there's like a lot of like 20-year-old like rockers, you know, people dressed up like it's the 80s or something, you know. But so that was pretty diverse, but very, very, you know, I might even say MAGA, like MAGA white. Yeah. And Motley Crue at one point said, "You can't cancel us," and, you know, they have like girls dancing on stage and whatever. So that came, but what was funny about that is I was telling somebody at the Ali Azimi show about the Motley Crue, one of the guys in the band actually, and they were like, "Yeah, khareji nabudan." There was no khareji at our show,
which means foreigner.
Which means foreigner. Now, we've talked about this before, and I'm not, of course, indicting the Ali Azimi band, because there's, you know, this is something that you hear Persians say all the time in the diaspora, which is that Persians, if you're new to this and you know, and you don't speak Persian, Persians call non-Persians foreigners, even though we're not in Iran, we're in Canada or we're in the U.S. And we've joked about that before, but I was actually thinking about this and thinking about how it's really quite absurd. You know, it really speaks to a Perso-centric, I don't know how we would say it, an Iranian-centric view of the world. Because I was thinking, like, if you and I, Reza, went to, or me and Keon, even better, we went to Shanghai, you know. If you and I went to Rwanda, you know, and we were in a cafe with a bunch of Rwandans, I'm not sure that in English we would say, "Look at all these foreigners." Do you know what I mean? It's inconceivable to me that I wouldn't go to Germany and go to a concert of Germans and say, "Look at all the foreigners here."
I know.
Right? I would be keenly aware that I'm the foreigner. But Persians,
I know.
Kharejiya.
But you know why?
What do you think that's about?
I think because we're Iranians and everybody else is khareji.
That's right.
Non-Iranian.
Yeah, I'm Iranian, and you're not Iranian.
You know,
so you're a foreigner.
you'll know who
perfect.
the great filmmaker Werner Herzog is, right?
Yes, of course.
Yeah,
I
you
love
probably.
him.
Yeah, did you know Shai?
And a fantastic actor.
So I was once interviewing Werner Herzog. He's a great, amazing, I guess you'd call him art house or alternative filmmaker, German, you know. And I said, you are, you know, at the top of the heap of alternative filmmakers. And he said, I am not the alternative. I am the center. Everyone else is the alternative. And it's kind of the same thing, you know. It's like, you know, Iranians are we're the center. The rest of the khareji are. What do you think it's about, Shai?
Maybe you would laugh, but imagine you go to Thailand, for example,
Yes.
and you go to a club, and there is a lot of white people. So you would say there is a lot of khareji there, but you don't call Thai people khareji. Particularly, we call khareji white people. We call them khareji.
Oh, I see.
Yeah,
That's right.
like
We don't say so. We don't call immigrants who are.
You don't even say Turkish people.
no,
We don't call immigrants of color
No.
khareji.
No, we can
You refer to their
So we're really talking about white people.
Yes.
So it's got to
Which
be
makes it even
tied-
worse, I think.
It's got to be tied to history somehow. Like maybe, you know, at the beginning of like traveling when.
But khareji means foreigner.
Yeah.
So that's the funniest part, because they're you know, ostensibly picking the people that they identify as the most, who've been here for generations, and saying the foreigners.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Maybe there is another reason, because when, like, let's say 100 years ago, people would immigrate to Kharij, and they don't travel to like China. They would travel to Paris, London, and, you know, the European cities. So maybe Kharij came from that thing.
I wonder if it's that deep-seated.
It is. I think it is, because my mom was talking about, like, she was like, I didn't even know what Canada was when I was like a kid. She's like, all I thought what Kharij was when people said we were going farang, we're going abroad. It was basically France, Germany, and England and America.
And they're all khareji.
They're all khareji. These four countries. She was like, I never heard of any of these countries. So,
Which is sort of weird, because even Canada now, the face of Canada isn't necessarily a white person, but that's an antiquated idea of what Canada is. But it's because it's really a country of immigrants. That is, I mean, even Toronto, the majority of the people who live in Toronto were not born in Canada.
Exactly.
You know? So,
Yes, sir. Like if you travel to India, you would say "Man raftam Hind," but if you travel to Paris, you would say "Raftam Kharij."
Kharij.
Yeah.
Wow.
it's true.
You can't go to Kharij and that be China.
No, you could say "I'm
What
Raftam
about
Chin."
what about
But
Russia?
او رفتی داخل. You went inside. You didn't go
For
outside.
Russians or
Russia
white?
is interesting. I would say we call it
Russians
Kharij for Russia.
Yeah,
By the way, we got Reza, you wanted, there was an interesting letter we got, because we ran a part of our interview with Tehran about race, actually,
we
race
did.
issues yesterday, and we got an interesting letter. We'll get to it later in the show, but you
100%.
want to talk about it.
Of course.
Anyway, I didn't want to go too far into the rabbit hole on the Khareji thing, but I thought it was an interesting thing. Lots of Kharejis at the Motley Crue show. That's all I can tell you that.
Motley
and Def
Crue
Leppard.
represents.
We are coming to you on rookmedia.com. It is there that you can link to all of our platforms. We're on our ongoing mission to build a new audiovisual encyclopedia of Iranian diaspora identity. We are on Spotify, SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, Instagram, and CastBox. If you'd like to see some visuals with Rook, switch over to YouTube. And if you like your Rook descriptions and bulletins in Persian and in English, check us out on Telegram, all at Rook Media. Again, our website, rookmedia.com, where you can actually be a supporter of our show and become a patron at our website, rookmedia.com. If you haven't checked out the website, go do so. It's all there, all of our previous episodes, different programming, videos, funnies, etc. We're going to get to Dr. Sina Joorabchi in just a few moments. I should note that later in this show, after I speak to Dr. Sina and we do a little recap of that, I want to get to the big news from the United States last week, and the repeal of the abortion rights, Roe v. Wade, in the United States, and how that intersects with the nature of theocracy, of America becoming or asserting itself as a theocracy, religious rule, in the manner of Iran. A really strange and uncomfortable parallel is emerging, but we'll talk about. We'll have a proper chat about that later in the show. So let's get to that. And in the meantime, a big thank you to Hamid Reza Safipour for helping make this episode of Roqe get to your ears and eyes. Hamid Safipour, Luxury Custom Homes. If you are in Toronto, in the Toronto area, or an Iranian Canadian, you may know the name Safipour. Hamid got his master's in civil engineering and got into the field of building and consulting on luxury homes over 3 decades ago. In the last 20 years, Team Hamid and Nina have made the Safipour name one of the tops in the business, a name you can trust to buy your dreamland and build your dream house. Safipour Luxury Homes has now teamed up with Remax, and they're moving into also doing exotic high-rises that are beyond things we've seen in Toronto before. If you're thinking to buy or sell or build your dream house, if you are anywhere near the Toronto area or interested in buying here, get in touch with Safipour, Safipour, Safipour.com, simple as that, Safipour.com. And actually, you can get in touch with Hamid Safipour and his team at 416-876-4918, or that phone number at gmail.com, 416-876-4918, Hamid Safipour Luxury Custom Homes. All right. Captain Reza, Groovy Shaya, the fabulous Keon. Stick around. Let's get to our featured guest. My featured guest today is an Iranian-American ear, nose, and throat specialist, a facial plastic surgeon who has become a social media sensation, followed by millions of people on different platforms, where he is known simply as Dr. Sina. Dr. Sina Joorabchi is an otolaryngologist specializing in disorders of the head and neck, ranging from hearing loss to cancer. He did his undergraduate training at the University of Michigan and his medical degree at Michigan State. He's an appointed clinical assistant professor for Nova Southeastern University. He regularly teaches residents, students, and lectures at various conferences. And Dr. Sina is not only an influencer now, but an educator. Since 2019, he's posted hundreds of videos explaining everything from ear tube surgery to the dangers of ear cotton swabs. He has had features on CNN, ET, Medscape, Headline News, and The Doctors. And right now, Dr. Sina Joorabchi joins me from Pembroke Pines, Florida. Hello, sir.
Hello, Jian. How are you? It's good to be humbled, and I'm very honored to be on your show today. Thank you.
Very, very nice to have you on the program. Thanks for doing this. Congratulations on all your, I was going to say recent success, but it's been a while that you've been achieving great success. It's interesting to me. I mean, you're clearly a charismatic guy, but you're also a serious doctor. As I do that introduction to you, I'm thinking, is it odd for you that you're now being introduced in media appearances as this social media sensation, as if you're Kendall Jenner?
You know, it is. You know, one of the big things, and I always say this to a lot of like the residents and students that come with me, and it doesn't matter if you have 2 million followers or 0 followers, it's a thing with doctors. And I always say you have to check your ego at the door. Don't bring an ego into the clinical room. And I always kind of hold myself to that. So I don't let that stuff get into my head. My wife likes to say I do, but I don't. And it's just something I keep myself in check. So I just, you know, you say that, it just bounces off of me, and I just keep moving on. You know, I don't let it faze me.
So I mean, is it having millions of followers? One would think you need an ego to at least be doing those videos. So you've got something of an ego, but you also have kids. I mean, your 10-year-old son, for example, does he think it's cool that his dad has suddenly become this social media guy?
I think more my daughter is intrigued by it. You know, I overheard her talking to one of her friends, and they were doing the classic, well, my dad does this, my dad does this. And she goes, well, my dad does TikTok. And I was like, oh, God.
Right. It's not important that you're an ENT. It's that the TikTok, right?
Right. And so and I've actually had them be on a couple of my videos where they voice over. And I think, and they've seen me on TV. I had a couple like segments on Miami News, and I don't know how much they really grasp it, but I think they more enjoy the fact they hear themselves, you know, on the media every now and again. And, you know, I catch my son will be like, welcome to my YouTube channel. And it's just kind of like, I guess, the world we're in at this point.
So, I mean, the story is, I can never tell. I don't know how planned this was for you, but the story at least is that you just made a video for fun of you. I think you were bundling up your gloves from working as a surgeon or something, and then you just did a basketball shot with the gloves and your robe into a garbage can, and you put a video of that up, and suddenly that goes viral. Is that really how it started?
That's where I got a lot of attention, but I got drawn to social media from probably 2014. I posted my first YouTube video because I was thinking it'd be much better to give someone a video where they could always access for instructions on how to recover from surgery or how to clean your ears or how to irrigate your sinus, rather than them getting one paper which they crumple up, they lose in their car, before they get home. So I started doing that, but I just wasn't as consistent enough. And then fast forward 5 years later, I saw a lot of people having success in social media, and I was intrigued, and started saying, you know what, like I had a lot of medicine say, Dr. Sina, you're kind of a cool guy. You should put yourself out there. I'm like, okay, why not? So it's this thing I like to do where I basically just bundle the glove. I think it's kind of an intriguing thing. I'm a basketball player, so I always try to take my shot when I can. So I bundled my gown into a glove, and I just shoot it. And the girl that was kind of rotating with me, she filmed it, we posted it, and it just kind of opened up a world that I didn't know existed, basically.
It was, there's a few people like yourself, especially the TikTok influencers or the sensations, who seem to have, whose ascendance seems to have come concomitant with the period of the pandemic. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's been really the last couple of years for you. How much do you think the pandemic played into your success or the interest in you in terms of people searching for medical help online and also having more time and inclination to be on social media while they're in lockdown or something? Do you think it's something about that?
I think it was all timing. It's funny, TikTok was a platform that was looking to be legitimate. It was something that people thought as kind of a joke. So there was a group of doctors that started to get some traction as infotainment doctors. And we were communicating with corporate TikTok because they wanted to have more information videos for people. So we started to actually communicate with them on a regular basis. As they were kind of pushing our content, then the pandemic hit, and it was just like gasoline on the fire. So they already had their vision of going towards that, and there was an opportunity to really capitalize on getting information out, and it just really opened up a lot of different opportunities. Like as you mentioned, it allowed me to get exposure on CNN, and I was able to actually start working with the World Health Organization as a result. There's a couple of us doctors that were in communication with them as far as getting the word out on vaccination, mask wearing, proper self-care, and amongst other things, wellness. And so it was definitely an opportunity where people started to value health because everyone was scared and everyone didn't know where to go. And there was a lot of misinformation out there. So this was definitely an opportunity to kind of further that chance of getting exposure to the world.
When I've seen you refer to this as medical infotainment. Mm-hmm. It's a great term. On the one hand, it seems like a great accessible way to spread important medical tips to the masses. On the other hand, medical infotainment sounds oxymoronic, as in, should there be any time for entertainment when we're talking about health advice that can be quite crucial in our lives? How do you navigate that seeming paradox?
I look at it, it's interesting. I think there should be both. I think I want to entertain you to the point where you don't realize that you're learning. Where it's like you look back on it and you go, oh my goodness, I learned this from Dr. Sina. I learned not to use Q-tips from Dr. Sina. I think that there's comedy and smiles and just good vibes go a long way. And, a lot of times I think the classic perception of the doctor is just droning on dull, neutral, bland toast type of character.
Right.
I try to be the opposite. I think it just comes down to communication. If someone's smiling, if someone makes a joke, if someone is can get to a point and communicate well with you, you will take their message in a more informative way. And the beauty of some of the social media, it kind of forces you to do that in an effective way. You don't have that much time to go on and drone on. So I do think that there is relevance in that. And you're seeing it in people on these mediums where they learn how to invest in real estate, cryptocurrency,
Right.
stock market,
Right.
all these different knowledge platforms are existing in infotainment.
It's definitely helpful. But I mean, you're young, you're good looking, and you're a TikTok guy now. Do you, do you ever...
I can't take that in seriously.
No,
I don't know
but
how
well,
to
I mean,
see
it's
that.
true though. Is there any part of you that goes, "I'm going to be taken less seriously as a doctor somehow"? Like that somebody's going to go, "Oh, he's the guy on social media. He can't be as experienced or as good a doctor as the old guy that we've been going to for 100 years that isn't on TikTok."
You're absolutely right. And in the beginning, when we first started before the pandemic, we got a little bit of that. And maybe not so much as me, some of my other colleagues, they got that feeling of they were affecting their credibility because they're on this platform of people that were dancing and doing jokes. But, slowly as people kind of stop connecting dots that don't exist and they actually digest and see what you're doing, and that got wiped away. And I think the pandemic allowed us to have that credibility a lot faster. Maybe it might have been a longer ride up. It kind of got us there. So I really didn't feel it too bad. There was moments of it, and I'm pretty careful. I think us as Persians, we are talented at how we are perceived and our how we come off, how we look. Like all this stuff where I'm seeing all these other doctors doing cringy stuff, the inner Persian in me was able to kind of keep the radar in check where I wasn't going to put myself so out there. I could be professional, but intriguing.
Right.
I think we're masters of that.
Right.
Thank our mothers.
I'm going to get to the Persian part. Do you have at this point when you make this stuff, do you have a team? Do you have like somebody who follows you around with a video camera? How are you creating all this content?
So in the beginning, it was pre-meds and med students. It was people that wanted more time with me in the operating room. And so they were kind of capturing content, and I was doing a lot of the editing and a lot of the thinking as far as what I wanted out there. And then, there was a point where I had like a full-blown editing team, and they were helping me, but it didn't really feel like me, or it didn't feel as authentic. So I didn't like it. It was too polished, and I liked the aspect of being genuine, a little bit raw. And so I kind of pulled back on that. And so now I basically kind of go back to the med student thing. I think it's kind of a little bit of a truth to it. And I kind of just spearhead the content creation on my own, which is definitely a little more cumbersome, a little bit more difficult, but it's kind of what's worked for me. So I'm going to stick with it.
It's funny. It's interesting, isn't it, with social media? We've noticed that even with our programming, that nobody wants it to look too slick. Nobody wants it to look like network television, right? The more it looks like you're just some doctor who's making these videos yourself, the more appealing it is somehow. I guess it plays into a sense of authenticity.
Exactly. You want to be able to connect with the person that you're watching, right? That's why people love the Kardashians. They feel like it's like their family. There's a rawness to that family. There's a rawness, and it's something you can connect with. Something that's too polished is too distant, right? Mm-hmm. Something that's a little bit flawed and something that's a little more relatable, it connects with you. It moves the needle a little bit more for people, I think.
You mentioned being Persian. Take me back for a moment. I know your family left Iran right around the time of the revolution, and you were born in the States. Is it true that your father was a prominent doctor himself in Iran, yes?
Yes. So he, it's kind of funny that he worked with the World Health Organization for legitimate reasons, and I worked for it via TikTok. So, I think that makes me laugh, but he basically did his all his schooling in the United States at St. Louis University, went back to Pahlavi and set up this Center of Medical Education with the World Health Organization. He worked there for about 13 years. There was a point in time where he set up this cath lab where the Shah actually came through and basically toured the whole facility. And
sorry, is this Pahlavi University or? Mm-hmm. All right, okay.
And so he basically was there, and then right around 1979, 1980, while the revolution was ongoing, he got a letter from the dean of the medical school in Chicago, someone that was very familiar with his work, and he had been very well known because of the World Health Organization. And they basically reached out to him saying, "Hey, would you like to come for a sabbatical? Wait for things to cool down. Come over here and work at the medical school." And so my mom and him went, and my mom's like, 40 years later, here we are. They went and never came back. So it was just kind of a unique thing where then more of our family started coming through, and they all kind of stationed up in Michigan. and that's basically where I grew up.
Do you think they had an expectation in the beginning that they were going to return to Iran? In other words,
Yes.
when you were born, was the thought, we're actually going to, we'll let you assimilate a bit here in America, but we're eventually all going back to Iran?
Well, technically, I wasn't a thought yet. I wasn't on the world, but for my sister, they were thinking, okay, let's go to Illinois. Let's be there for a year. We'll let things cool off, and we'll come back and resume our life, back in Shiraz. And it didn't really go that way, and they started making more and more connections. And then I was born in '82, and then more families started coming, and you want to be where your family is.
You seem very American, Sina. I mean, it's a funny thing to say, but as somebody who people say, oh, yeah, you seem kind of Canadian because I grew up in the West like you. But you're a basketball player, you're a guy in Florida, your English is perfect, and you got an American kind of sounding accent. Were you brought up super assimilated? How Persian were you growing up in Michigan?
I think I was, looking back on it, I wish I had a little bit more of like a Persian influence. I mean, let me say this carefully. We grew up celebrating Nowruz. We're a full-blown Persian family. I think I'm saying on the regret of, I wish my Farsi was a little bit stronger than it is. That's my longing regret, because I get Persian patients that come through, and I can muster up a conversation. But it's just I wish it just flowed off the tongue a little bit smoother. And but other than that, no, we grew up pretty Persian. Thankfully in Michigan, there was probably about 10 or 12 kind of Persian families we kind of grew up with, and it was we felt like we had our own community. I had my cousins there, so it was a strong community of Persians, and I definitely felt the culture, but very much I definitely have an American influence. I mean that's kind of how I grew up.
And was it somehow obvious growing up that you were going to follow in the footsteps of your father and be a doctor?
No, not really. He didn't want to push us into medicine. He really wanted to find our own path.
That would make him an extraordinary Persian.
Right. He was smart.
He's not pushing you into being a doctor.
But I think also kind of go back to your original point of being Persian, he didn't want to push it too hard on us. He wanted to kind of find our way, where I think a lot of other parents are kind of forced it. So you're going to learn, you're going to do everything. So he was very much hands off and said he didn't want to be forced into it, because his father had basically forced him into medicine. So the experiment worked. Right when I was 18, I did some volunteering work, and I did some volunteering work at University of Michigan Pediatric Burn Unit. And I always talk about this because I say that word and it just brings back some PTSD memories, and things are just singed in my brain, some of the sites that I've seen. And it's great. It's humbling. It gives you perspective that, hey, there's people like this out there in the world. People need help. And it connected with me. And it's something I definitely draw upon to kind of humble myself. And I think from thinking about that, I kind of knew I was going to go in that direction. I just had a lot of sympathy and empathy for what was going on. So not being forced by my parents and having a formative experience kind of solidified my path to becoming a doctor.
Have you ever considered, I don't know if you've visited Iran, have you? Would you consider actually living there or working there?
I would love to go to Iran. I've talked about this a lot. And, another regret is my parents went back with my sister when I was studying for my boards. I would talk about it every year. It's one of these things. I was in California last year, and I talked to my cousin's wife about going out to Quiche and checking out all these different places, and I would love to go. That's still, I'm Persian, man. I mean, I grew up in America, but I'm Persian, and there's an emptiness for me not going there. And so I think at some point I will. It does seem a little daunting, to some degree now with where life is, but at some point I do want to go back there. My kids are, they have Persian in them. I want to be proud of where they came from. We're a great society.
Wait till you start doing some of your content in Farsi. It's going to be, you're going to suddenly have 80 million new followers, trust me. Why did you go into ear, nose, and throat as a specialty? It seems, this is just as a non-medical person, but it seems particularly difficult, kind of gross, like it's hard work. And having gone and seen an ENT doctor a bunch for my hearing over the years and stuff as a rock musician, well, I'll tell you about that relationship in a moment. But why is that something that appealed to you?
Equating what we do just to earwax is like equating a dermatologist to only popping pimples. And actually, maybe that's not a good example. Let's say, there's a lot of what your nose and throat can do. We're actually head and neck surgeons. Every surgery from the clavicle up that's not in the eyes or the brain, we're doing. We're taking out tumors, we're taking out thyroids, we're doing sinus surgery, doing cosmetic surgery. It's a really versatile field. So, every pre-med and med student goes through a path of, do I want to be a surgeon or do I want to be a medical doctor? Once you make that decision, you kind of go and look at all these different specialties. And ear, nose, and throat was particularly interesting to me because there was a lot of finesse with the surgeries. You're dissecting off these critical structures in the neck, dangerous structures, dangerous nerves, and you're using a lot of cool instrumentation. I'm a techie guy. These scopes, these navigation instrumentation, the devices you're using, it's always an evolving field. It just kind of gravitated towards me, where you have a clinic that takes, some intelligence. You have to understand many different things. You have to be a neurologist. You have to understand allergy, immunology. You have to understand internal medicine. And on top of the fact that you're a surgeon, I think it was one of the most diverse fields. I can treat infants to seniors. I'm not just bottlenecked to one person.
Right.
So it's such a diverse practice for the head and neck that's what kind of appealed to me. And the fact that I could be a surgeon, where also we can fix a lot of things. A lot of professions, they can't fix your condition. Neurologists can't fix a lot of things. Rheumatologists cannot fix a lot of things. I can fix your conditions. There's a lot of victories, a lot of satisfaction.
But you're the bearer of bad news when it comes to hearing loss. I know that, which is hard to fix, because I'm familiar with the work you do, because I've been to an ear, nose, and throat specialist a few times, because I spent 10 years on the road playing in a band with a monitor full blast next to me, as I played drums and sang, and so I have, as it turns out, in my left ear, some 30% hearing loss or something from just the blasting of that monitor, which is why I kind of fear seeing this doctor, because I'm always afraid to take that hearing test and find out it's gotten worse or something. But a lot of the things that the kind of general but really smart lessons that you impart in your videos, I've learned from him, because I guess these are things that ENT doctors or people in your field would know, but the general population is really not that aware of. And so let me bring up a couple of them, and you can teach us here. He has taught me, I remember him saying to me, never ever use a Q-tip. And this is something that, in your ear, that is, and this is something that you've got videos on, that you've really made something that is a big deal, and you've had, there's hundreds of thousands of views on these videos, so people are consuming this information. Tell us why Q-tips are so dangerous.
Well, first, it's a blunt tool. You're not scooping anything out. You're pushing it in, and whatever you're retrieving out, there's a good portion that you're pushing that in deeper. And that's going to require much more of an invasive procedure to get out. But the better way to think about it is to step back. What is the purpose of earwax? Earwax protects against infection. It moistens the ear canal. It's a self-cleaner. The wax kind of spirals out of the ear canal and cleans the ear itself, and it protects against foreign bodies. So there's a purpose of earwax that we don't need to basically manicure or take care of. But the problem we see with a lot of Q-tip users is that you can create chronic conditions. You can create dry skin. You can push the wax in deeper. You can traumatize the ear canal and the eardrum. So there's definitely more downside than upside of using a Q-tip. There's definitely like a soothing aspect of it. Let's be honest, right? But the reality is that the ear is very much like an autopilot organ. You can just let it be, and it'll handle itself for the majority of people. There really isn't a benefit. If you read the Q-tip box, it says not for ears, so it's not intended for use in what we like to commonly use it for.
So other than when we go to the doctor and get the ear blown out with with the water or something like that, I mean, what are we supposed to do at home to clean our ears? Nothing?
Nothing. The majority of people, nothing. Now, there's some people that have smaller ear canals, right? It's like bottlenecked. And so it's hard for the wax to come out. Those are the people that need us or may need to do other things. So the other things include just softening the earwax. So baby oil or olive oil is always a safe thing to use. Moisten the wax. If you know your eardrum is intact, if you don't have a history of a perforated eardrum, you can just use a syringe. You could syringe irrigate your ear, or when you're in the shower, have the shower water go into the ear canal and kind of irrigate through as long as your eardrum is intact. So that's what I recommend for those people is softening it with a baby oil or mineral oil for a couple days, then trying the self-irrigation. If that doesn't work, come on in. And then also another topic to talk about is these cameras. People have these iPhone cameras, and where they basically like a USB camera plugs into your iPhone, and you can actually see what you're scooping out of the ear. And honestly, I think that's case by case. It depends on if it's a 75-year-old person doing it, I'd be worried about the dexterity of that person. But if it's earwax and it's on the outer aspect of the ear, I actually don't have the biggest problem of you doing that. But I also, again, going back to our original point of there's a purpose for that wax there. We don't need to take it out. In fact, it's protecting you. But that might not be a bad utility down the line of using that camera more regularly.
I remember this specialist of mine used to say, don't ever use the type of earphones that you put in your ear, like earbuds or AirPods. I'm thinking if that was ever a rule, you've kind of lost that battle because they've become so omnipresent. But how do you feel about that? Do you counsel people to use the kind of earphones that are exterior that you like I'm wearing right now, or do you think that it's okay to put the AirPods in?
I think it's okay to put the AirPods in. They do two things. They can push the wax in deeper, and they can put pressure on your jaw joint, which is right there, and also can trap moisture. So I think that you're more able to do more extended listening periods with over-the-ear headsets, but I'm okay with the AirPods. I use them myself. What you have is great. Over-the-ear noise-canceling headphones are the best sort of headphones. And a good rule of thumb with any sort of hearing device, and I've said it a couple times, I'm like my media is a 60-60
60-60. Tell us about that. Yeah.
Not a lot of people know about this rule. It's something you can relate to. So the idea is not to listen to more than 60% of your iPhone volume for more than 60 minutes. People don't realize that duration of listening can sometimes be just as harmful as an acute, intense 1-minute exposure of a loud noise. And it seems like a lot of people can connect with the idea of like a sprained knee or a sprained ankle, right? So if you're running on this knee for an extended period of time, you can wear it out just as bad as if you're acutely running on it too. So the idea is just you want to be very protective of your ears because once you lose that hearing, there's not much we can do. Not much we can do to recover it. We can help it, but not much we can do to recover it. So the 60-60 rule is a good way to keep yourself in check, and also taking breaks after that period of time. Because a lot of people will listen to podcasts or watch shows. Or I had a guy that does a lot of lawn care. He blasts the hearing or blasts the sound to try out the lawn care.
Right.
And so that's gonna be a problem down the line.
What do you make of the fact that some of your most popular content tends to be I don't know how to describe it, kind of
Gruesome.
Yeah. I mean, you have a video where you've removed some mucus from a nose that looks like uncooked bacon, and it's got 700,000 views, and probably more on TikTok. I'm just looking at the Instagram video or something. So what is that about? What do you think people are interested in when it comes to that?
It's invoking an emotion. Not everyone's going to connect with the 60-60 rule, right? But I will most certainly more consistently get an emotion out of that piece of bacon looking like mucus coming out of the nose. And so whether that emotion is good or bad, it's invoking that. And honestly, I wish it was the other way around. I wish people were more emotional and passionate about the 60-60 rule. And I don't want to be relegated as just the gross doctor. I want to still give you that information. But it does offer an opportunity to get a wider path of exposure for people, and that's just the way the world is. It just offers a reaction that will then require something to react to.
We'll certainly be linking to your platform. So if anybody wants to see what kind of objects can be pulled out of a nose, they can check out Dr. Sina's platforms. You've been expanding into the metaverse space with NFTs and crypto. It's not been a good couple of weeks for crypto and NFTs, but you've launched something a few months back called Metadocs. What is the idea?
So the idea actually came inspired by a lot of the social media influence. So meaning a lot of people in the beginning stages that followed me were pre-meds, were medical colleagues, people interested in medicine. And so I felt this could be an opportunity where people could have a chance to connect with people that are social media influencers, but in a more reliable fashion. So we envision like the pre-med being able to reach out to us, to ask about how to get into medical school, how to get through certain adversities while you're in medical school, or the colleague that may want to connect with us as far as talking about medical procedures, or just some sort of like grouping opportunity to kind of connect with us, or anyone that's interested in just general medical information. So we kind of viewed it as an opportunity to kind of use this interesting technology and use it as almost like a membership card, but more importantly, be a vehicle for charitable donation, which I thought was an opportunity to do something special in that space, in a space that is kind of dishonest in many ways. There's a lot of what called rug pulls that are in this space. So
would there be an avatar of you that I would then go in the metaverse and be asking advice from? Is that how it works?
So think of it as there's 8,888 pictures of different style of doctors, females and males. And so each one is unique. You would buy one of these and it would almost give you access to this membership that you can connect with, various big social media doctors and have an opportunity to engage with them more reliably. If you look at all of our DMs, we have hundreds of DMs every day. We can't get through any of them.
Right,
and there's a lot of people that they take offense of that. And the reality is there's just no bandwidth to do that.
Right.
So this is an opportunity for people that want to have that further connection to kind of do that, but also while you're doing it, a big portion that's going to charity. So that was kind of the motivation, and it's kind of been on hold a little bit with what the current market is, but something that we're very passionate about. We have a lot of ideas what we can do with it.
Also I saw some articles that there's some backlash that's been written about it in the medical community, that Metadocs is not an actual licensed telemedicine service. Is that a real thing, the backlash, or is that just I never know how to trust these kind of articles,
You know what it is? And I think a lot of it was our fault because we didn't do proper messaging. It was really exciting. Got the word out. We had a lot of brainstorm thoughts. So people were connecting the dots that don't exist. They were like, oh, these guys are going to do surgical, metaverse surgeries, and they're going to treat us medically via the internet. And no, we just wanted to be more of like a social access. And that was kind of like, it's funny, for someone that's seasoned with social media, we definitely failed there. All of us failed together as far as getting like proper messaging out there. We really want to be a social access device, and to kind of like people that are in our direct messaging to get better access, but also kind of have that charitable opportunity. And what had happened was they reached out to people that fully didn't grasp the project, and they started talking, and then they created this narrative, and then we just got kind of, the rest is there. But that's kind of what the project is.
Gotcha.
And, we're working on trying to make sure that the messaging is clear and concrete moving forward.
A final couple of questions for you. First of all, I mean, it all seems like this is happening quite quickly in terms of your star growing in social media. You've got these appearances that now on TV shows that they're increasingly asking you, and your numbers are growing. And do you have a plan for this? How you will navigate your time as you get more and more popular in social media? Can you see yourself giving up your daily practice and becoming some sort of Dr. Oz, pre-politics, that type of thing?
I tell my wife this, I tell my family this. I'm not here to be a movie star. I want to be an infotainment guy. And I've had a couple different shows actually reach out to me to start a show, and we've declined them. I'm a family guy first, and I think there's a point where you start going a little too deep. It can be a little bit damaging, and I don't think it's worth it for me. That's not my priority. And it's funny, you may not even believe me, and you're like, well, why are you doing this? I think this opportunity, what I'm doing, I can ride the line where I can get to the world my information. I don't feel it too much in the home base or in the clinical base, and I get it every now and again. But to go bigger than that, that's not my desire. So I'm going to probably stay in this lane, continue to be a doctor, continue to just infotain, and whoever I can inspire to go in medicine, I'm going to continue doing that, and that'll be the plan. Keep it simple.
You seem to be doing a great job of balancing it so far, but I can only imagine there's going to be more difficult decisions ahead as your star grows and your wife starts to get annoyed by how many people are calling you the handsome doctor. But a final question, I think about your dad, and I think about your family. Your dad there, the great doctor teaching at Pahlavi University and bringing all that expertise. What does he make of his son becoming a social media sensation as a doctor?
Oh, he loves it. He would go on the shows. He would eat it up. I mean, he's like the elephant in the room. He would relish it up. Maybe he should be the guy here.
Maybe he should. You should bring him on.
He is an intelligent, well-traveled, wide knowledge base. He's an impressive individual, and he would do well with it. And he's very proud, and he loves seeing this sort of attention. That's for sure. He's proud. So.
Dr. Sina Joorabchi, it's a pleasure to talk to you. I'm thrilled with all your success, and I thank you so much for making the time. I know you're a busy guy. Really appreciate the conversation today.
It was a pleasure to chat with you. I'm happy to come back, and I hope your channel continues to have great success. I think it will.
Thanks, buddy. See ya.
Have a good one.
Bye-bye. Dr. Sina Joorabchi, an Iranian-American ear, nose, throat specialist and facial plastic surgeon who's become a social media sensation, followed by millions of people on different platforms, where he is known simply as Dr. Sina. We reached Dr. Sina Joorabchi in Pembroke Pines, Florida. All right, microphone's back on for Groovy Shia, Captain Reza, and the fabulous Keon. Dr. Sina. I quite enjoyed that.
Sina, yeah. You know why? What I liked about Dr. Sina is when he was talking about in our culture, like doctors ought to be presented in a certain way. You got to behave like a doctor. And it's like, I'm trying to break that stereotype. I love that. He's right, because it's just more fun. Now I'm following him on Instagram. I'm looking forward to going to the doctor.
I'm still thinking about the hearing thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
I can't stop thinking about it.
60-60.
Well, the 60-60 rule, be honest.
No, I never.
Is anyone actually doing
Never.
that?
No.
And I'm scared
Like, first of
now.
all, I can't even remember the last time I listened to something at 60% volume. Let alone just for an hour
حال
only.
نمیده آخه. You want-
I blasted like crazy.
It's terrible.
Like,
It is
know.
terrible.
It's fun though.
Yeah.
I know. You know best because you're a drum player.
I try a drum player.
Drum
yes.
That sounds weird.
I
Drum
know,
player.
drum player. You can't say that.
You
Drummer.
are a
drummer.
drum player.
Drum player. A swim player.
Well,
A
there's
drummer.
how do you
Drummer.
say that? He's
Drummer.
Drummer.
Say
Drummer.
drummer,
Fuck,
yeah.
I was like, what is the word? That's not bad.
Not drum player.
Yeah.
Well, actually, although that's actually literally correct, I'm a drum player.
Sounds
Yeah, I try to be careful of it. See, I'm probably the only one of the four of us that's been to an ENT, right? Have you actually been? Have you had your ears tested,
No,
Shia?
no.
I'm in desperate need.
I'm
have
shocked that you
lost
haven't
it.
You're
gone.
deaf, Keon.
I am.
And I noticed
it's
that-
bad.
Why don't you go to a...
I'm scared, I think.
Well, let me tell you, it is terrifying. It is terrifying because it's kind of like when you go to the eye doctor and they make you read the thing,
Yeah.
but you go, oh well, I can read the top ones, but with the ear doctor they play sounds in your ear and you tell them what you can hear and it's awaiting the results. It's like and so I've been probably 3 or 4 times.
and then I just stopped out of complete depression because it was just getting worse and worse.
What's your hearing at?
Well,
Like,
the last time I went was like my left ear had 30% hearing loss because all those years that I was touring in the band, I had my monitor set up on stage. We didn't use in-ear monitors because we found that we could sing better without in-ear, and play better. So I had it blasting, and when you've got a loud crowd, you need it really loud to beat the crowd. And I've got drums, so I want to be able to hear myself over the drums. And so it was just blasting on my left side of my head and it was amazing. I mean, they'll tell you things like they'll go, they look at the chart, you do the hearing test, and they go, you are going to have trouble hearing a woman's voice in a crowded party of 50 people or something. And it's exactly because there's certain frequencies that you have trouble with. But it's scary because the thing about hearing loss is and I don't know if there's, maybe Dr. Sina could, I don't think there's any way of rehabilitating it. Like once you've lost your hearing, it never comes back. You can't fix it. You can only sort of try and stop the damage, and then you have to wear hearing aids and things like that. So it's just like this long slide towards deafness, right?
Jesus.
Yeah, that's great.
I'm just hoping my issue is just a buildup of earwax.
You gotta go check it out.
Yeah.
You gotta go get that.
Yeah.
But then he said earwax was
right,
good.
right. So he's saying it's good. So I mean,
Earwax, I heard it was good too, but first, that it protects your, back in Iran, I had an ear infection. My mom took me to the doctor. They said I clean his ear all the time. It was like, you shouldn't. That's the problem. So I don't know what to believe now.
What kind of a doctor was it? Like a witch doctor?
I don't remember his face, but I know he had orange shoes.
well, see, I used to use Q-tips in my ear, so maybe that's the cause of it.
Oh, you popped your eardrum. Trust me. Don't even look for the cause.
So
I'm your doctor.
I made myself deaf.
Get
Great.
that checked out.
Actually, with that I have heard that. I had as I said, in the interview we talked about that the Q-tips are terrible. That it's a really bad idea for your ears. Yeah. Don't stick anything in your ear. It's basically
But how
the
can
rule
you
of
just
thumb.
not clean your ears? You can't just leave it. That's
Well, one thing that can happen is, and I think this happened to a couple of my ex-bandmates, but there's something called tinnitus. Tinnitus is when you have a constant kind of ringing or piercing sound in your ears. You can't get rid of it.
at all times.
At all times. Well, I mean, it comes and goes, but there'll be a period of a few hours when you just can't stop hearing a little ringing somewhere in your ears.
I think there was a movie.
You have that?
Yes, but not all times.
Yeah. That's terrifying.
It's annoying.
Because the folks who have that because then your ears become extremely sensitive, and you can't, you increasingly can't. I knew a drummer who had a really bad case of tinnitus, and after a while, he couldn't play drums because the sounds were too loud. It would drive him crazy. So he was wearing headphones to not hear himself play the drums, and it was really, really.
Is it
scary.
Common amongst musicians?
Yeah, it is. Tinnitus is,
I
it's
think
rock musicians. I mean, the thing is there's a whole new. We've never lived through. I remember the doctor telling me this. Headphone technology keeps getting more and more powerful, and so it's louder than it's ever been. We've never like little headphones that you wore with your Walkman in the 80s and 90s don't have the power that they do today now, and they're sticking the earbuds in and blasting, right? So we don't know. There's no generation that has been this aggressive with their ears than the moment we're living right now. So we don't actually know what's going to happen to us 20 years from now. That's what's scary about this for all of us, because we know that it's degenerating, and you don't know how fast or I mean, why aren't you more careful when you say you always blast your stuff in your head?
It's fun,
right?
It's like drinking. It's not good for your liver, but you do it anyways.
Right. It's like smoking without thinking about the 5 years you're going to lose on the other
I
end.
know. You're well, it's not now. It's later. Right now.
Although you don't smoke.
No, I don't.
But you do blast stuff in your ears.
I do blast stuff into my ears. Yeah, especially when I'm driving. It's so much fun driving and listening to music.
Wait, Oh, but you mean we blast in the car. You don't want your headphones when you're driving.
No, not headphones. But I'm blasting in the car.
But Keon, I think you don't know why your hearing is.
I blast music at the gym for like hours, and just in general a lot of times. So that might be a huge cause. I'm gonna book an appointment with an ENT. That's it.
Yeah.
I needed
good
this.
idea.
This is a nice.
Maybe Dr. Sina
reminder.
will see
I
you
lived
in Florida.
One trip.
All right. So as I alluded to earlier in the show, I wanted to talk about the Supreme Court decision in the United States last week. Some people may have heard of the repeal of Roe versus Wade, which is the abortion. Basically, abortion rights have been imperiled in America. And I want to preface this by saying we aspire at Roqe Media to not be overtly political. We believe in addressing human rights issues and advocacy that way, but we try to stay nonpartisan. We try to stay non-party affiliated, especially when it comes to Iran, as possible as the Mojri, as the Mojri of the
Host,
show.
Yes.
But I'm not a big fan of theocracies.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a big fan of theocracy.
Yeah.
And obviously we say theocracy, we think of Iran. I respect religion. I respect people who are religious. I think religion has actually done some great things in some cases in terms of people finding their path, etc. And I respect democratically elected governments. I don't like when they mix. I don't like when the government is a religious governed body. And I don't think this issue, when it comes to abortion, for me, has never been, it is certainly a politicized issue, but I don't even think of it as a political issue. I think of it as a human rights issue. And this has been, there's some history for me with this, because back when I was in high school and university, I started supporting the pro-choice cause, and in university helped develop this thing called the Pro-Choice Network. At that time, there was an abortion clinic that was in downtown Toronto, that there would be some folks who would come, religious folks who would come and scream at women who were going in to get an abortion. And there was no the internet was just at its nascent stages at that point. So we had phone trees. We would call around at 5:30 in the morning to go and stand outside of this abortion clinic to link arms and allow safe passage for women to go in and out of it. Let me just clarify at this point that whatever your views on abortion are, whatever the folks listening, whatever you believe about an abortion, or if you're a woman, whether you would have one or not yourself, that of course is your right. And I don't begrudge or deny anybody to be anti-abortion. It's the idea that you impose your view on anybody else, that you project what you believe is right onto somebody else's right to their own body and reproductive choice. That's the issue, especially if it's a male politician making decisions about what a woman will do with her body. So we're talking about choice here, not what your opinion is, but choice based in religion.
Yeah, it's like a hijab ijbari, you know.
It is very strangely similar. And so I was in this protest. Now, then I was in a band, Moxie Fruvis, and we would do this yearly fundraiser called Fruvis and Friends for Choice. In a couple of our videos, there's a song we had, My Baby Loves a Bunch of Authors. I'm wearing a Choice t-shirt. It was just an important issue. Why do I tell that whole story? Because in that entire time that we were, demonstratively saying, hey, support abortion rights, women's right to choose, we never imagined that in the United States, Roe v. Wade would be overturned. It was never something that I would have imagined. You're nodding, Keon, and I want you to speak to this. But it was really, really shocking to me. I know, I can't contribute anything to this that hasn't been said. There's really eloquent women and people who are talking about this right now. But I just want to say that it was shocking to me, and as a show that, and as a network that here often talks about the issues with the theocracy in Iran, the fact that in the United States there are states now that are going to have a more backward approach to abortion than Iran, based on basically religious kind of dictates. is shocking, and you know, lays waste to the idea that, you know, let's all immigrate to a better place. I know America is not just defined by this law, and I respect that there are people who disagree with me. I am, you know, I'm not backing off on this one. I'll never be not pro-choice, and so I'll just, you know, that's the deal. But the idea that through some kind of religious dictate, you know, you're gonna repeal a law, and that's really what it comes down to in the States. It reminds me too much of what makes us so frustrated and angry about what's happening in Iran.
I'm just in disbelief that it even happened. I mean, I can't add to anything that you just said, Jian, but the fact that the U.S. is a democracy. You know, people are supposed to have freedom there, yet they don't even have women don't have freedom to their own body. That I can't believe that. I really I can't. Like, it feels a lot like Iran.
Yeah.
So that's it.
A lot like Iran. You know, when Trump got elected and Republicans and Democrats started spiting each other and fucking everything up and dividing their nation, I thought division amongst people is the only thing that the United States now has in common with Iran. But I guess they can add taking away women's right to the collection of divided states of America now. It's just shameful, man. What are you going to say to that? It's spite and politics. And, well, I don't know. It's
fucked up. That's it. Like, there's nothing else
I mean,
to add to it.
what are you going to say to that? It's just so primitive that it just doesn't make any fucking sense. Like,
I wouldn't want to say that these kind of rights are not threatened in Canada, but it's another thing that we as Canadians don't totally get about the United States. I think sometimes, like gun culture and rolling back abortion laws. I mean, I know a lot of Americans in the media. I'm seeing them talking about, well, maybe we'll go to Canada, or, you know, that would be a safe haven around this kind of stuff. But it just you know, I just had to give the history, my personal history of being shocked that, you know, history just is like a seesaw. You know, it goes up and down. It's like a roller coaster.
And
you can't imagine. I imagine 30 years ago, I'm thinking that this law, this is from. We're supposed to be progressing. This is a law from the 70s that they're repealing,
crazy.
right?
Like, what else can happen that we thought was crazy and would never?
Same-sex marriage. I mean, I don't know. You know, but that's what they're saying,
Clarence
right?
Thompson brought it up. He mentioned
yeah.
Clarence Thomas, one of the justices on the Supreme Court, actually brought it up and said, all right, maybe that's next. That should be revisited too. So now we're talking about taking away LGBT rights as well.
Yeah.
What else? What else is next?
بابا این آخوندا واقعا it doesn't matter American or Persian, like all, you know.
Yes,
they
that's what it feels like.
Yeah.
That's certainly what it feels like.
Ahunds of Congress.
Anyway, I mean,
for real, what's the difference? You wear a tie, he wears amame.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
We can't call it out in our own. I mean, there's a lot of Americans who listen to us, people in the States, and I can only imagine that this kind of thing feels all too familiar. We're not saying the States is Iran, you know, but I just don't like theocracy. Yeah. That's it. That's what it comes
regardless
down to.
of the religion of it.
Yeah. All right. Before we ended today's show, we were going to talk about. Resi, there was we have letters, but we're not going to do letters today. But there was one in particular.
Yeah, there was
that
one
caught your eye, and you really wanted to talk about.
Yeah, it did, because we were talking about women's rights and rights in general, and racism, and just race in general, and prejudice. That is we've received as immigrants and as in the Iranian diaspora, and as a nation of immigrants, Iranians. But one thing that we
specifically, I should mention, we ran a clip of an interview that we've done with Tehran.
Yes,
who is a black Iranian comedian, and in the clip he kind of says, "I get it from all sides because I'm a black Iranian named Tehran, and and we were talking about intra-Iranian community racism.
That is correct.
Iranians will be racist towards him, even though he's Iranian, but because of the color of his skin.
And what I'd like to do is to draw a through line between what Tehran is. His experience going through and the experience of very many Shahristanis in Iran, people from smaller cities, not the capital, Tehran, Afghan immigrants and refugees who lived in Iran for years and years. And because it's very easy to think, because since Tehran is a black, half Iranian American that is getting it from all sides, is just, oh my God, poor Tehran. Like, you want to feel bad for him. However, it's another thing to think about the fact that Tehran is not just, and Tehran is just an example. The idea of racism towards Iranian, I think, starts from Iranian towards Iranian. And on that note, we got a letter from a woman from Iran, zhr.ism. She commented on Tehran's clip. And in Farsi, she wrote the letter entirely in Farsi. I want to read it in Farsi. And halfway through the letter, because I'm from Shiraz originally. I didn't grow up in Tehran. My uncle lived in Tehran. I only visited a couple of times, and I lived in a very diverse neighborhood. My neighborhood was, my friends were Jewish, Khuzistanis, all from all sorts, all parts of Iran.
Arabs,
they're Arabs, Arabs, Khuzistanis, and Baha'is. So that's why Toronto for me feels like home, because it is a melting pot that I'm used to. I grew up in that mahalle. However, I also, after a little while, when you grow a little older, so does your environment. So I went outside of my mahalle, my neighborhood, and I went to the city, and I realized that what this letter says is very, very true, and I experienced it firsthand, and I'd like to read it and think about it, discuss it, and I like people to comment on this too, and because I like to hear other people's opinions personally.
Okay.
I want to know. I want to leave it for discussion to see.
You can read it in Persian.
Yeah, I want to read it in Persian.
How will Keon understand what you're saying?
Keon can ask questions. We're going to have a Q&A after the show.
I use you as I project my own insecurities onto you.
We will have a Roqe Q&A just for Keon after that.
I'm sure Keon and I will do our best to understand. Go ahead.
For sure.
Sure, I will understand. Not sure about Jian.
من متوجه میشم ولی
That's right.
Go on.
Okay, so Zahra.ism wrote this letter that says, بله، نژاد پرستی بیداد میکنه تو ایران. شماها ایرانی هستید ولی ایران نبودید ببینید چه خبره. دختر ایرانی باشی و کمی سبزه نژاد پرستی رو تحمل میکنی. وای به وقتی که اهل ملیت‌های دیگه باشی یا قومیت‌های خاصی که ازت جوک بسازن کاکو. یا شهرستانی تو تهران باشی. And that's the letter that ends right there. However,
the way you read it, I thought it was written by Irosh Janati.
I think we need music.
I know. No, because
like
it really resonated with me. And the reason I read it with the Shirazi accent halfway through, she doesn't specify where she's from, the writer of this comment. And it doesn't matter, irrelevant. She makes a very interesting point. I'm from Shahristan. I'm from Shiraz. And to judge people...
Shiraz is considered Shahristan?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh.
That's what I'm
Any
talking
city that's
about.
not Toronto, not Tehran.
That's not Tehran, Shahristan. It's so
wow. Even if it's a big major city like Shiraz.
Even if it's Kalan Shahr, they even say it. Kalan Shahr means like a great city of Toronto. It's like Kalan Shahr, the greater Toronto area, right? Metropole. So they say Kalan Shahr, Isfahan or Shiraz, but it's still Shahristan, and it's a status thing purely. Which it's very
so are there no so why don't you translate for folks who
that's a very actually good idea.
And are there no Sabze people in Tehran?
There are Sabze people in Tehran, and there are a lot of Sabze cute people in Tehran that don't get discriminated against
because they're not from Shahristan. So it's a geographic thing rather than a color thing?
Not always. That's what I'm saying. It's not just one element.
Okay, go ahead and explain that.
But
we shouldn't even explain what
translate
Sabze
the letter,
is.
So it says, the translation of the letter says, yes, Racism is sorry, I'm gonna read that again. Yes, Iran is also full of racism. You guys are Iranian, but you never lived in Iran, which is, Zahrajan, is not entirely untrue. I lived in Iran most of my life. To see what's going on. If you're an Iranian girl and you got a little bit of a darker skin tone, you tolerate racism or prejudice towards you. But it gets even harder if you're from another nationality. This is me, I'm assuming she's referring to Afghanis in Iran. Or from a different city in Iran other than Tehran. Then they make jokes about you, they make fun of you to your face and behind your back, and it's tough to tolerate. So that's the essence of the...
Why do you think she specifies if you're an Iranian girl? Is there a difference? Do Iranian girls get more...
I think
prejudice than Sabzi males?
Well, naturally, whoever has lesser rights, right, survival of the fittest, is gonna, as a result of oppression, is gonna get the short end of the stick. So it's not like I experienced that even in Iran. Like, you speak with an accent, they're like, like you said that word funny or whatever. It doesn't faze me, because I got other things going for me that it doesn't affect my self-confidence. But a girl that is coming from a low-income family, educated, cultured family, but can't afford buying the luxury brand Louis Vuitton, reads J.D. Salinger, but can't afford to go to the concert of Aliyah, not Aliyah, but whatever, like in Iran, there's someone who has a concert in Iran, and has an accent. Now, she is automatically perceived as low class, dahati, from, like, which is
intra-Iranian racism.
Intra-Iranian racism.
But which is not simply, you're saying it's not simply based on color. No. It's based on
I don't
class
think,
and
yes.
geographic location.
And also, I have to say, like, it's I'm Tehrani, and so once a lot of times when I travel to like Shahristan, actually they would make fun of me. So I have to say that it's not only
it's true.
Like bache fuful, or
it's true.
And also inside Tehran,
you're seen as privileged somehow or something.
Yeah. It's
entitled.
It's a defense mechanism. He's trying to attack you before you get to attack him, and he doesn't even know why he's doing it. Right? It's like Shaya, the sweetest soul on planet Earth. No, it's serious.
And also,
it's a serious
inside Tehran, like different areas of Tehran, like the northern Tehran, they would make fun of southern Tehran. And it's. I think it's beyond racism. It's just we don't accept anyone.
It's division. That's what I was saying earlier. Like, to tie it back to what I was saying, I think one thing that now United States can add to the things they have in common with Iran, aside from division amongst nation, is lesser rights for women. So congratulations.
Well, yeah, that's a return. The United States is returning to the way it was in some ways. But this racism that I've often said, I mean, Iranians are we tend to exhibit a lot of. We've done a couple of shows on this. A lot of racism. Like, there's very, very few countries or ethnicities that there aren't jokes about, that there aren't sort of horrible kind of slangy slurs that come out about, and sometimes it's just in the tone, like it's not even, you're not actually saying something bad, but you can tell they're this Arab person walked into and they just say the line, Arab Yomad, and everybody go, we're kind of making fun of them. And then within Iran, I remember, wasn't there always like jokes about, when I was a kid, about like Rashtiya or something, like they make fun of.
But here's the thing, because I know a lot of people are going to be like, Baba, hale ye joke to. No. This is not to be misconstrued with the notion that we want to joke about like different things in life, our differences, and celebrate our differences through comedy. And we do have that here. We make jokes about Newfies, we make jokes about Boston, like the United States, like everybody makes it, and it's okay for as long as it's within the context. It gets uncomfortable, and to me, it's not like it crosses the line
when you actually mean it. You know,
I thought
when
it
you
was just the
intentionally-
color of your skin. I know in Iranian culture, like with relatives, whenever I would tan, I'd be like, چقدر سبز شدی, پوست به خوشگلی و سفیدی خراب. Like to
I
them,
know.
that's the ultimate beauty.
My mom is like that too.
And
She's
صورتت
like-
پر شده, like having a big face is attractive, apparently.
You know, Super P, who just came from Mashhad a year ago, she's got like a tan right now, and I was like, "Oh, you got a tan?" I know. And she was like, "Yeah, I know, it's terrible." And I was like, "No, you got to get rid of that."
Yeah.
Only Iranians
That
are the people who think
mentality.
this is bad. You know.
Yeah.
Although, as someone who you know, I know that Reza, you and Shia, you guys have spent time in Southeast
Thailand.
Asia. It's the same thing in
the same
Vietnam or in Thailand or in Cambodia. They
Caste
value. In fact, sometimes they put
Yes.
white paint on their
Yes.
face. I
Yeah.
mean, and you'll be in somewhere like Cambodia, and you'll be around all these amazingly, wonderfully colored faces, you know, and then you'll look up a billboard, and the billboard will be like a Cambodian face,
Yeah.
but she's got like super white skin, you know. That's what they're selling as the ideal beauty, you know.
I know it
So
almost
it's-
looks fake, but that's like
But so we're part of the Iranians are part of that thing. I mean, we've talked about it a bunch on the. My mother, Siyah Shudi, you know, like that's what I'm aspiring to, Mom. I want as deep a tan as I can get. Yeah.
That's how my mom is like too. She's like Sefido Topoli. That's good. That's always good.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks for the conversation. Thanks to you guys for writing to us, and please keep that coming. info@roqemedia.com is where you can send letters. info@roqemedia.com, or post on any of our platforms. Any comments, ideas. This is full time for Roqe for today. Remember our website, roqemedia.com, ROQE media.com is where you can find all of our programming. Thanks to the amazing team who put this show together. Savvy Rohan, talented Anahita Ponce, the artist, the fabulous Keon, Super Parisa, Smart Pega, Aghay Mehdad, Captain Reza, and Groovy Shia. Thank you to all of you out there for supporting us and sharing our content. Please subscribe if you have not done so already on any or all of our platforms. Find me on Instagram at Jian Ghomeshi. Happy birthday, Shia.
Yes, yes,
Shia
yes.
Shoja.
Shaya Shoja.
Yes.
Shia Reza Shia Shoja.
Reza Shaya Shoja.
Let's party, Shia, like
Of
it's
course.
1999. In the meantime, everybody, please, ازتون خواهش میکنم, right?
میزون باشی.
میزون باشید.